I printed out this Vault-Tec poster girl figure from the Wasteland Warfare RPG game quite a while ago, and I'm a little bit annoyed that it hasn't had any paint yet, so let's fix that. Hello everyone, I'm Matt, this is Model Minutes, and join me on the workbench today as I finally complete this project. So, no messing about with this one. I've had this one sitting on the shelf for quite a while, so I just need to get some paint on it. First up, this Army Painter black primer was sprayed over the entire figure and the detachable base. This gives a nice even layer, but it's going to form a base coat for a little bit of zenithal priming. So a zenithal primer or zenithal highlight is where you add a lighter colour, such as this Army Painter white, over the top to help give the impression that there's light shining down on the figure from above. This helps to give some natural shadows and things, which I can work on in the next steps. As I'm not messing about, I'm going to be using some Army Painter speed paints for the majority of this project. Peachy flesh was carefully painted onto the figure's fleshy parts, in particular the face and the hands. I quite like the design of this sculpt, and although I've 3D printed it at home, it did come out really well, and there are quite nice defined lines between the different elements of the figure, which makes painting it quite easy. The next paint is Satchel Brown. This would be painted onto her hair, elements of the super sledge, and also her boots. The good thing about these speed paints is that they do add some shade and contrast in one go, and mostly you only need one coat of paint to get a good result. For the figure's Vault-Tec overalls, I'm going with this Beowulf blue. I carefully painted this on, trying to avoid any areas that I would like to pick out in different colours a bit later on. For the metallic items, I've got this broadsword silver, and I would paint this onto the Pip-Boy on her wrist, and the metallic elements of the super sledge. A few other small details would also be picked out in this colour. For the base, I also gave this a fairly generous coat of this paint, but I would add subsequent layers in some places to give a little bit more of a modulated appearance to the metalwork. For the yellow trim on the figure, I'm going to go with this Humbrol number 99, which is a lemon colour. It might be a little bit vibrant, but I'm going to dull it down a little bit in the next steps. This was carefully painted on with a finer brush to pick out the trim on her overalls. This was probably the hardest part of the project, just trying to get everything a little bit neat and not get it on any of the other colours I've already applied. I'd also paint it onto the handle of the super sledge as well. It might be a little vibrant, but again I'm going to dull it down shortly. For the screen of the Pip-Boy, I thinned down some green paint and painted this over the top to give it a kind of glaze. I thought it would be cool to add a little bit of extra colour, so this one's wearing a headband, and I thought it would be nice to pick this out in red. I would also use a thinned version of this red paint to pick out the lips on the figure. This number 32, which is a dark grey, would be sponged onto some areas of the figure. In particular, I'm going to add it onto the handle and other areas of the super sledge, just to give the impression that the paint has been chipped and worn over time, and then I would also do this on the display base, just to add a bit of extra variation and appear as though it's become a bit worn. To add some further depth, I've got this Dirty Down Rust. This can be thinned down with some water to make it much thinner and a little bit less vibrant, and this was then painted onto the super sledge to help give a little bit more detail and a more aged appearance. And then I would also do this onto the base. You can see on the base that I've picked out the storage container in a green kind of colour, and some of the bottle caps have been picked out in some different colours as well. Just to go a little bit further, this sepia shade wash would be applied to the fleshy areas of the figure. This just further enhances the shadows. I did thin this down a little bit with some water because I didn't want it to be too vibrant. And then this black wash would be applied to pretty much everything else. Again, I would thin it down with some water. I find that these Vallejo game washes are a little bit thick to start with, so a bit of extra water just helps them flow and makes the effect a bit more subtle. Vallejo Pale Sand would be applied to a very dry brush, with the excess removed, and then this would be dry brushed over the entire figure. This is going to help highlight any raised details and add further contrast. This was done very gently over the entire figure. I don't want to go too far with this effect because speed paints already give an element of highlighting and shade, so this is just to add a little bit extra. The penultimate step was to paint the edge of the base in black, and then a little bit of super glue would be used to glue the figure onto the base. And with that, I'm going to call this little project complete. So I'm not an expert at figure painting, it's definitely something I'd like to explore more of in the future, but actually I'm fairly happy with how this quick little project's turned out. This was very much an afternoon project for me, and I'm glad that I managed to get it done because the unpainted figure has been sitting on my shelf for a number of years now. So I actually got this figure as part of a Humble bundle a little while ago, but if you'd like to download and print this figure at home, it's actually available from Modiphius Entertainment as an STL file. I was particularly impressed with the print and the quality of the sculpt. Yes, it is a little bit stylized, but I think that falls in line with the Fallout Wasteland Warfare aesthetic they were going for. I'm particularly happy with my overall results here. I really like using the speed paints because they make projects like this just really quick, whilst also giving you shade and highlight in effectively just one coat. But I would like to explore some more miniature painting in the future where I can practice other techniques and try things such as edge highlighting as well, which I think could make my projects look a little bit more realistic. Every project is practice though, and practice means that I can make progress. I do have some of the other Fallout STL files from Modiphius Entertainment to have a look at in the future, and if that's something that would interest you, please let me know in the comments. I think though this is pretty much it for this video, so don't forget that we do have a Model Minutes Model Club, and if you'd like to join the Model Club and get early access to videos and other exclusive perks, check out the links in the description. Massive thanks to these guys on screen for the extra support they give me and allow me to create consistent content. There are other ways to help support the channel if you'd prefer, and again full information is below the video. The best way to support the channel for free is by subscribing with notifications turned on so you never miss a modelling upload. Finally, last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and I'll see you on the workbench again next time.